This Prime Minister is not worth the cost or the corruption. Today, Conservatives got a letter from the Commissioner of the RCMP indicating that the National Police Force is now formally investigating the ArriveSCAM and the Auditor General's report into it. Now, we know that the Auditor General was, the government deprived the Auditor General of key documents to calculate the full cost and the breadth of the scandal. We also know that the Prime Minister refused to hand over documents in the SNC-Lavalin and the Aga Khan Island scandals. Will the Prime Minister commit here and now to giving the RCMP all the documents and evidence on ArriveSCAM?
The Honourable Minister for Public Security.
Mr. Speaker, again, the Leader of the Opposition seems to be impressed with some information that's been known in the public space for many weeks. The RCMP have confirmed previously that they're looking into the circumstances around ArriveSCAM. We have total confidence in the RCMP to do this important work. I'll remind the Leader of the Opposition that the President of the Border Services Agency referred these questions proactively to the RCMP, and we'll continue to do whatever we need to do, Mr. Speaker, to cooperate with the National Police Force and every other ongoing investigation.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Other investigation. How many police investigations are they facing, Mr. Speaker? After 8 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost of food. Today, we got a terrible report from the charity Second Harvest, which reports that this year they expect 1 million additional visits to food banks, and that last year 36% of charities had to turn people away because they were running out of resources. Will the Prime Minister reverse his inflationary carbon tax on farmers and food?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to Fight for Canadians, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives, Mr. Speaker. Today, I just appeared in front of the Agricultural Committee, and Mr. Speaker, it was shocking to see that one of their members was defending the profit margin of foreign food processor, Mr. Speaker, at a time when we should all be fighting in this House for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. If the Leader of the Opposition want to do something for Canadians, vote for C-59, increase competition in this country. More competition is more choice, better price for Canadians, and more innovation, Mr. Speaker. Canadians understand that. Will he understand?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, what I understand is that after 8 years, this Prime Minister, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, is not worth the cost of food. And if you thought that grocery profits were too high, after 8 years, you'd think he might have done something about it. But instead, we now have a massive increase. Let's get this straight. Second Harvest predicts there will be 1 million more visits to food banks this year than there was in last year's record-breaking year. In fact, many charities can no longer give people food because they've actually run out. In light of the failure of the carbon tax and the pain it is causing, will they axe the tax so that Canadians can afford to eat?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
One thing Canadians know, Mr. Speaker, is that the Leader of Opposition, the preferred verb is cut, Mr. Speaker. We all know he would be cutting. When you're looking at the record on both sides, Mr. Speaker, let me tell you what we have done in the last few months to fight for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We have launched the largest reform on competition in this nation history. We have made sure that we have a functioning Consumers Bureau of Affairs, Mr. Speaker. We have made sure that we have now in this country more measures to fight for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Every member of this House should be fighting for Canadians. The question is, will the Conservative fight with us for Canadians?
Restrictions on grocery chains.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
We're not doing anything, though.
Mr. Speaker, after that answer just proves that after 8 years, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost. It's not just that 1 million more people will visit food banks this year than in last year's record-smashing year. It's that now there's a large Facebook group of 8,000 people who call themselves the Dumpster Diving Network. So desperate are they that not only can they not afford groceries or find it at food banks, that they're literally jumping into garbage cans to find food. How desperate do Canadians have to get before this government will finally axe its tax on food?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, over the past 8 years, I have watched time and time again the Conservatives stand up to vote against the very measures that are putting money in the pockets of families to help them cover the cost of food. When it comes to the Canada Child Benefit, we stopped sending checks to millionaires so we could put more money in the pockets of 9 out of 10 families. When it comes to taxes, we raised taxes on the wealthiest 1% to cut them for the middle class. When it comes to seniors, we put more money in the pockets of low-income single seniors. On every one of these measures, the Conservatives have opposed them. We will continue to do what's necessary to allow families to put food on the table, no matter how hard they oppose.